Okay, welcome back to the final slot before the lunch break. We will try to stick to the timetable or to the schedule today. Before we get to the automatic agent updates that Andreas will be presenting, we are looking at the other works of the Agent Bakery. There were a few, the big red one that we will talk about later. And apart from that, the feature has ripened a bit, but not that much happened. Apart from the automatic update. So a minor issue that many people will be happy about. The Windows agent had a rule that activated certain rules or deactivated them, and the problem was that there was a section in the checkmk ini where you could list which sections you want, and if there were none listed, all of them were executed. We integrated this into the bakery, and it did work well, except for the case when you did want to have one excluded. The only option then was to select all of them except for one. So if things were added, then you would have to change the rules and adapt them, and it was a bit tedious. And now there's a new rule for this, which is called disable sections. It does what it says, and if there is an enable sections, then the disabled sections has a priority over that. It overrides the enabled status, which may be the more common use case anyway. How many of you do use the bakery? Ah, okay, it's quite a few. Good. Then another thing would be custom file deployment. Does anyone use that yet? A few do. It's interesting for those who like to write their own extensions. Why would I want to have that? It used to be the case that you did your local checks or the Nagios plugins for MRPE or agent plugins, and you manually distributed them to the hosts, and then this was quite a flexible thing to do. You could do other things. But what was not possible was to integrate it into the bakery properly, unless you write your own bakelets for the things you want to distribute. But that means a lot of overhead. Looking at the simplicity of the bakery with the flexibility of the extendable agents. So now what we do have is custom file deployment. How does that work? In the local hierarchy, there is a folder called checkmk agent custom, and the custom files are organized in packages. You just create your own folder for each of them. So that's one thing you can do here, and you could also do the MKP feature. So where does it end up on the target system? So it's defined in the packages of custom files. There are 4 subfolders, and on Linux is like this. Bin goes to user bin, config goes to etc checkmk config, or whatever the configuration of the Windows agent is. Lib and var work accordingly. So it's all very agent-based, which of course makes sense. What is the case in Windows? In Windows, everything just goes to the agent's installation directory. It's not ideal, but for the typical use case, it's something that shouldn't really make a difference based on the type of files you usually put on a Windows system. Any questions so far? All good? Then, as the others had it, there are a few works that are listed here. One that may be mentioned here that is also future-oriented. Changes in custom files that we have just talked about are now being detected by the bakery. So the bakery notices in the file hash something has changed, and the agents are being marked as need to be rebaked. With other local extensions, if I have my own versions of plugins that were there before, I mean, this doesn't work yet, but it will work very soon. Any questions about the bakery, or do we go to the updates? No, there's one question. Can I export the entire agent bakery and import it on another system somehow? Let's say I define 300 log file monitoring rules for Windows Agent and I want to use them in a different monitoring system. This fits pretty much to what Matthias said. We have this concept in the idea drawer for the packageable configuration, and baking rules are rules like all the others. So as soon as we were to have that, it would be possible, but right now it's not possible, as far as I know. Thank you. A workaround with the custom file deployment could be to have the log file pattern in a custom file and not through the rules, but that's not very nice to look at. Kurze Frage. Die Custom Files, kann man die auch wieder aus dem System entfernen? Also ich habe eine Custom File, die ich dem Agent zukommen lassen will und dann, wenn ich das nochmal mache, wird die einfach überschrieben. Die sollten dann entfernt werden, wenn sie Teil des Pakets sind. Zum Beispiel MSI für Windows. Für Windows bestimmt, welche Dateien für Windows dabei sind und dann, wenn die sich selbst installieren, dann sollten auch Reste aufgeräumt werden dann. Is there a way to download these agents for the initial deploy of Linux without authentication? No, from the checkmk server. I mean, through a widget or something. Is there a way to download them? I mean, I always have to identify myself. I'm sorry, I cannot hear anything because they don't use Macross. So the vanilla agent does it, but the other agent doesn't. The vanilla agent can update itself? No, it doesn't have an updater. Now, the problem is that I need the updater so it can get the newer version. Well, but the updater would also. Well, there is one site with agent files where the vanilla agent is, and you can access that without authentication. In the Apache configs, this is in there. I guess you would have to extend this file in a local structure because this site is just a list of everything that then shared checkmk agents. So if you put your agent to local checkmk agents, it should show up there. And this is something worth trying, I guess. You have shown us the local files here. Yeah, like user bin. Can I overwrite my system binaries with this? In theory, I guess this is possible. Name conventions are good at this place. Wouldn't local bin have been a better option? But the package manager should be unhappy with it. It depends on the distribution. Well, if it's in a root context, and root can do it. Not automatically, I guess. Yeah, I had the same problem. I made my own packages to distribute agent plugins, and the packages were on the server, and the agent bakery did want to distribute the same files at the same place, and it gave me an error. And the update starter showed me I had to deinstall the package first, and then the bakery with RPM or DB bakery could overwrite it because it doesn't overwrite files. It says it's in the package database, so it doesn't overwrite the file. Well, it's an RPM feature or DBPM package. How does custom files handle files that may be locally on one file? So if I do local check locally and put it there, installed it, would then there be a conflict? Would it overwrite my locally installed files? Or how does he know if I take it out of the agent, how does he know what he can delete and not? Yeah, this is the package managing feature. If I manually copied it there, then it's not in the package manager. The dpkg doesn't know that the file is part of another package, and I would guess it's just being overwritten, but I haven't tried it out. Perhaps if you manually install the package, you would have to draw a false option to override it, and then the updater, I'm not sure whether he does a false. What's gone is gone. So the other way around, this could be exactly what you wanted. I mean, if you did a manual rollout and then you want to work with the agent, of course you would prefer it to be overwritten. But if accidentally there is none, then they would remain there because they're not part of any package. So if you change from manual to automatic, of course you would have to think how to create a smooth transition once between manual and automatic. And from then on, it's all smooth and simple. So the opening program is over. Let's go to the automatic updates.
Okay. So, hallo, ich bin der Andi
Hi, my name is Andi Umbreit. Like I said, I joined CheckMK in February, and I would now like to tell you a little bit about the updates, automated updates. Oh, hold on, this is the wrong way. I'm gonna have to skip through these. Okay, so we have the CheckMK agent updater. First of all, what are the goals and what are the features when it comes to the agent updater? Well, what do we want to achieve? First of all, automatic deployment of baked agents. So that means we go to the agent bakery and we adapt our agents, we have rules, we bake new agents, and we want to make sure that our host, we can really monitor that. So for those that where the rules apply, those agent hosts, so we don't have to do anything else, that it all happens automatically, that they get all their updates automatically. So all of this, of course, is integrated in the agent bakery, so we can configure it that way as well. So of course we have to then deploy it on our hosts, of course. So we do need one initial action which is required per host to really install the agent updater as well. But after that, it's happening automatically in order for us to be able to look at it from a CheckMK. We also have where we have a program or a script, and of course it's an agent plugin with a service that we can look at on our CheckMK page, and we can check the status, our update status of our host. And because of course we are using HTTP, that's how we're communicating between host and server. That's why we also have the possibility to do the whole thing encrypted by using HTTPS. So of course we also have the deployment, the actual deployment of the agent that is being deployed that is then also secured with a certificate so that the host can also be sure that you definitely are installing the right agent and that you're not getting something that's wrong. Okay, so first of all, the basics. So how do I install it on the host? What's the installation like? So the whole thing, I hope you can read it right here. It's in yellow up here in the yellow box. So the whole thing is in the agent bakery if we are on the CheckMK page. So we access that, we click on automatic updates, and then this is the checklist you'll see. So maybe it's a little bit difficult to read, but it's not all that important because we're going to look at it later on as well. So what we're going to do now is really just work through that checklist. So that means we are going to start from the top and then just work our way through, and we're just going to click on edit. Okay, so first of all, the basics that we need to do in order to have some security and safety here. So first of all, we have a signature key. That's what we're going to need. So that means we are going to create a private key and a public key. The private key is then later on going to be on our CheckMK server instance, and the public key is then going to be on the individual host so that the installed agent can be installed. And also this is a requirement that we created so that you can even use this deployment. So that means we're going to click on it and we're then going to choose create key. We're going to then choose a name, enter a password that you can access the private key. So later on it's going to be on the server instance as well, encrypted of course. So of course you can then also then access this later on with this passphrase that you see here. And then, of course, it's already created. And then the next step is going to be the actual plugin. So with the Agent Updater plugin, we are going to configure that right here. Next step in our list, and that is a rule that we are setting, so we can choose where we're going to put it. So in this case it could be the main directory, for example, and then we get this box right here, so you can choose again. This is the main area that we fill in. We can fill in what we want. And I just have it a little bit bigger because it was a little bit small before, so now you can see it. So again, this is a checklist that you could just go through. So the activation, yes, of course. So in most cases, what we do want is really that the plugin works automatically. So, I mean, sometimes you might not want that, but in general, that's probably what you want. You want to use the plugin. Otherwise, you would have to do the updates manually. So then we have an update interval check, interval for update check. So the standard is 1 hour. And that means that if our agent is accessed standardly, so that means usually once a minute, then we don't want that every time this whole update procedure is going on. If, for example, you bake new agents and you have new updates all the time, you don't want this to be triggered all the time. And that's why we cache this whole thing for 1 hour. Or if you have bigger installations, for example, you could also do 1 day or several days, always depending on what you need. And then the updater is not going to be running again and again. So then, of course, we have the connection information, server name. So what's the server name itself, the DNS name or the IP address, and then of course also the server that you want to connect to, and then also the protocol that you want to use. The protocol you want to use for fetching updates. Of course, you can use HTTP. That's possible as well. However, it is recommended that you use an HTTPS connection. And of course, right here, you have the certificate. So you see the certificate right here. This is what I use. So this is our own signature right here. And I have it for this server. That's what I chose. That's what I wrote. And it's very important that you have the same name up here as well, the same DNS name that you are using in the certificate. If you don't do that, it might not work. And of course, you can also sign the certificate by a higher authority, and of course have a certificate chain as well. So that is very good with the CheckMK appliance. You can configure it, and I am going to use that in just a second so you can have a look at it as well. And yeah, you can just configure it if you want. So last but not least, this is what's required. So a signature key. So this is not an option. It's not an option to have that key. You have to choose here. So you can also have several keys, but usually one should be good enough. Okay, and then we have this rule that we created. So we are now baking a new agent. So again, you just click on that. You click on this button right here, and then what you see the agent bakery. Of course, you might not be able to see it from the back, all these individual lines, but that's not all that important. So you're just going to see we have an install agent updater, a plugin configuration, and you see the whole rule here. Again, the rule we just configured, and there's a new configuration hash for this agent. And of course, there are the individual packages that were created. And in the back, what you see is that we now have the default configuration with hosts that match right here, with vanilla right here. So this is just vanilla. It tastes like nothing. So there's nothing special here, no agent updater, nothing. So it's just a very simple agent that can be installed. And then right here, because when I was creating this list, I didn't monitor any additional hosts. That's why it just says generic. So this is the agent that I can install that matches all hosts if I install them there. And then the next step would be, okay, we now need to sign our baked agents with the key that we created earlier. So again, we can access that right here. Again, this is the dialog box that will open. So you just put your key in, put your password in, and then what you see the agent bakery. Again, you see this encryption symbols right here. So that means our agents are now signed, and they can then show themselves when you want to install them. You can really see that they're from our server instance. So now just one little thing that's important though. So there's also a master switch. So that means the automated updates can be turned on and off from the server side, and you just click on it again and the plugins are released from the server side. So one thing that's missing right now is, as I mentioned, that one-time thing that we have to do on the host. So we now have to register our agent. And I would like to show you that in a second. It might be too small now. I'm going to make some room. Are you able to read it? Is that big enough? I think that should be good. Okay, so I am in an instance right now. So first of all, what I have here, well, I do have a CheckMK appliance that's running on a virtual box. And that's the page I'm on right now. So again, this is the access information that I just typed in. So this is the agent. The configuration hash looks a little bit different right here, but that's just due to the fact that this was baked at a different point in time, this agent. However, overall, in the agent bakery, we have a situation that we just saw. So that means I'm going to start with this host. I'm going to go to this page. So this is just one option. This is just option to download this package. So I'm on the Ubuntu system. So to me, this means the CVM package is the right one. So I'm going to download it. And I'm going to switch right here to my download registry. And I downloaded it earlier anyways. That's why it's in here twice, but that doesn't matter. So that means our hash right here is A3BE, and that's right here as well. So before I install, or I'm able to install a new agent, if I've already installed an agent, I'm going to have to remove it. And I can just do that with this program right here. Okay, so it's removed, and I can continue with this packaging problem, check MK agent, and we said, okay, A3BE, okay. Okay, so that happens very quickly. It's just going to ask me if I really want to do that. So, okay. And we already installed our agent with Agent Updater plugin. And we can now have a look right here. So my host is called Klappgrill. And we have the old status. And we just installed an agent. So we now have unmonitored services. And of course, I want to monitor them now. So this is a little bit better organized. Okay, so what's still missing? Oh, here it is. Is this one service that we just added, that's the CheckMK agent, and I want to monitor that as well. Okay. Okay, now it's telling us something. Okay, good. So now it's complaining. First of all, I'm going to enlarge a little bit. So it's, first of all, complain, okay, I'm not registered. And that's what it's telling us. So that means, okay, we still have to do that. In order to do that, we're going to type that in here. So this needs to be a registration process. We have CMK update agent with the option register, and then verbose mode twice. Okay, so now it wants information. So what's my name? My name is Klappgrill. And now I have to sign in once into this instance with my information, admin, permissions, and then the password. And now it's telling me that it registered successfully. And now, if it does sign into the... Are you sure that this is going to work? Because you registered a big Klappgrill, and I think it was lowercase in the other one. Let's have a look. No, it's uppercase, see? Okay, good. So hopefully it would work, or it will work. Okay, so this was the server secret. We have the secret right here. So this is the access information for the agent updater that the agent updater is going to use to sign into the server instance. So that means we don't need the unique access data anymore. And we have some information about the fact that we now are using HTTPS as a connection. And like I said, this is what we recommend, because first of all, this is just something that in the future, this host secret is still a secret, and we don't want to change that. So it's telling me that the whole status is registered now, and it also gives me a hint. It tells me that the whole thing could also have done different options. So if I don't want to do it manually, install it manually, then I could also do it script-based, as you can see here, and I can then do a unique deployment or something like that. Okay, so if we now look at the server as well, and we look at our status, the reschedule, and we just look what's happening, then we don't see anything. So we see yes, it's not registered still. And that's due to the fact that this service is part of the agent plugin. And that means that we have a cache time of 1 hour. That's what we indicated. So that means within 1 hour, this is not going to be used. So that means it only looks at cache data. So that means that we can now wait 50 minutes. Okay, fine. Maybe the hour should be up now. So there's this little trick right here that I can use. So this whole cache folder is here at var lib checkmk agent. And we have cache right here. And there's one right here. So this is just a regular cache file from a checkmk plugin, and it tells us, okay, it wants to only be applied once an hour. And if we look at it, we can see that there's an agent section and what we just saw in services as well. So that means we can just pretend that this is a little bit older because it looks at this timestamp, and that means we're just going to do a timestamp of today at 11. And of course, I should also put the name in. That's a good idea. And then it's going to work. Okay, so if we now have a look here again, we can see, okay, yes, last agent update at 12:38. So that was just now, that was the last check. And now it's happy. So that means our plugins, our updates are now set. Okay, of course, now we also want to know how it works. Where's my presenter? So if we want to use it, it's not responding. Did I turn it off? Well, okay. Fine, we're just going to do it this way then. So what's happening when it's operating? Okay, so we have our checkmk server and the host. We now have a situation where we have an agent installed on both sides. So on the host it's installed, and on the server it's there to download. And we have a private key and a public key, and that's the key that we set in the agent bakery earlier. And we're now going to say, okay, we now want to bake a new agent. We want to deploy a new feature. We want to do something new. So we're going to say, okay, we're going to bake a new agent on the checkmk server. So there's a new configuration hash versus the old one that's on the host. And we're going to sign it. And that means we are creating a hash from the agent, not a configuration hash, but just a hash value from the binary package from the baked agent. And that is then encrypted with our private key, and we then get a signature. And of course, the update is now only starting, so that means the host is now telling the checkmk server, giving it the access code. So that's the secret we were talking about earlier, and some other sets of information, name, for example, and yeah, mainly the name actually. And the checkmk server then checks, okay, do I have a new agent, or do I have an agent at all for this host? So in this case, for example, this baked agent, it does find it and says, yes, I have an agent for you with this hash. So this is 2017 AB in this case, and I'm also going to send over the signature. So the host then can have a look and check, okay, did I receive a signature or not? If it didn't get a signature, then it's going to decide at this point already to not take on the agent. But in this case, we did get the signature, so that means that we are now going to look at the agent hash. And that's different to what we just installed. So that means that our server now told us, okay, I have a new agent for you, and we are now we want to download it. So we are going to do that. And then the server then gives us the baked agent. And we are then going to put it on the host. And we then want to make sure that it's from the server, so we verify the signature that we received. So first of all, we also have the hash value from the binary package from the baked agent, and we then decrypt the signature. We can do that with the public key, and that's the public key that that fits the private key on the CheckMK server. And if we now have the same agent hash as a result, we can ensure that our agent really comes from a server and we can accept it. And then the agent updater says, okay, I'm going to install the agent via package management. So in my case, it's Ubuntu. And then our update procedure is finalized. So that means we have this newly baked agent, and we can now bake the next agent on the server, and we can just start all over again. Okay, just very briefly as an overview, I always talked about the fact that it's also available as a plugin, this agent updater. So that means we have the command and also the agent plugin. So the command works in a way that we can indirectly access it with root rights, as I just did. And of course, we have to do that once in order to register the updater on the server. And we can also access it and manually update it. So if we're not patient enough and we say, okay, it's cached for a long time, it's not going to be accessed from the server instance, so I would like to update it now, then you can do it manually as well. So if something didn't work or broke for whatever reason, then we can also install it again. On the other hand, the agent plugin, so that's our possibility to do the update automatically, carry out the update automatically, so once an hour or however often you want to configure it. So the whole thing offers us the service that we can look at and also the current status. And in addition to that, it works with the additional cached file, which makes it that we only have to really access the agent updater once a cycle. So you don't have to go through the whole procedure every minute or whatever if the agent is accessed. Okay, good. So now I would like to show you what it actually looks like if we have a new configuration in the agent bakery. So that means I'm going to go in here again, my page. I'm going to access the agent bakery. And I'm then going to create a new rule for my agent. So I can do logical value groups. So it really doesn't matter what I choose exactly, but I just want to create a new rule. And that doesn't take too long. I don't want to configure it, but I want to do one thing. I want to then limit it to one host, which is Klappgrill. So I'm going to save it. I'm going to access my agent bakery. And I'm going to bake the agents. Takes a minute, a second, and now what we have is my vanilla agent again. My vanilla agent, which is just a naked agent, really. It doesn't do anything. And we also have our baked agent down here, which has this one rule, install agent updater. And that is for the regular host without any characteristics. So when that wants to install it with a signature, you can. That didn't change. And in addition to that, just for Klappgrill, we have the newly baked agent with a new hash value, and that's not signed so far with this additional rule that I configured. So on the right-hand side, again, you see it only applies to the Klappgrill. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to sign the agent. And yeah, so what you see here, it is signed. That's good. But now I have the same problem that I just had. If I now go right here, and then I can see even if I do the check again, run the check again, reschedule it, we can still see this is a really big status. So that means, again, the same trick that we just did, we're just going to simulate that we waited an hour. And in the real world, we would wait an hour, of course, but I'm just going to adapt it right now. And then I'm going to look at the service again. Okay, so now I can tell last agent update 12:48. So that was just now. And now maybe just briefly, you can also look at the status in the agent bakery. That makes sense. So let's go to the section automatic agent updates, and then we look at the update status. So what we see here are our hosts that are signed up for the update. So in our case, this is only one. This is the Klappgrill with a target agent and also a downloaded agent. And again, what we see here is that the agent was installed. And yeah, we can just be happy about that. And if we now would like to work on that, if we say, for example, I don't want to wait for the plug into cache again, and I just want to delete the file, you can do that. And maybe that's not the best idea. So if I now look at my rule, I'm going to access it right here. So you can see that wasn't very successful. So these cache folder, the agent plugin wants to refer back to that, and it does check that, and if it doesn't find it, then it doesn't have output. So now I deleted it. That wasn't good. And there is a possibility, as I mentioned earlier, that you can just install the agent again. And you can do that using reinstall. I'm going to do verbose mode behind it so we see what it's doing. And this is just the agent updater if you access it manually. So it tells me, first of all, okay, I'm getting information from our deployment server. And again, we have the HTTPS part, and then also a target state that tells us, okay, for us, this agent with this target hash, with this configuration hash is relevant. And it also tells us, okay, it's already installed, but it says forcing reinstallation because that's what I wanted. And it also tells me that it's successfully reinstalled. And this installation, there's also, well, you can see that right here. Hold on. Okay, part of that is also the cache file is being rewritten. And again, we are at a healthy state again, and we can be happy.
And this is the end of my little demonstration. I hope you liked it, and of course I can answer your questions if you have any. Yes, I see a few hands up. Yes, my question would be about the functioning of the updater when it comes to distributed monitoring. I mean, usually you would take the first approach, use this central site as the deployment server, but you cannot expect that all the monitored hosts are can access the master through HTTPS. So the slave sites would have to be the deployment servers. Are there any pitfalls you can fall into if you want to create it like this? I mean, you could also configure directories accordingly. Yeah, we're talking about HTTPS connections or general issues. Now, if you have a supervised host on a slave side and you cannot access like central, let me forward this question because distributed monitoring is a different issue. Yeah, we had this question before. One solution that is directly applicable is, I mean, it requires a bit of manual work. On the Apaches of the slave side, you need to implement a proxy rule, which takes or gets the rules from the master as a proxy. But we don't only want to send away packages, but we also need the feedback so that the page shows us a correct status. So it's not enough to just push packages from the master to anywhere. What we do have as a concept is that on an application level, this proxy does work, and that the target host sends a request to the slave server, and then that picks up the data from the master server. It is not yet implemented, but this will happen. But from the slave side, you need an HTTP connection to the master. But then this works transparently. What I would like to have, or what could be changed, is that right now with the downloads on the website, I had a problem. When I download an agent for a system, I always have to do this with an authenticated user. I cannot use the just link and get it to a system. It doesn't work. So the question is whether this link couldn't be changed. So you put a hash in there that you don't have to be authenticated, but in the hash, it's in there that this person has the right to download a file. What you said exists for all pages. It's automation user. It's a user that identifies through the URL. If you start a user, there is this option called automation. It's in the documentation as well. And this is exactly what you asked for. Yeah, the problem is I cannot just go there and click the link, right button, copy link, then go to the host and say download, because there is no automation in there. So I would like to have the option at some point to define it, that I would like to have the link with an automation user in it. Because it's a bit complicated this way. Yep, accepted. Is there a way to quickly see whether there are unsigned agents floating around? Because we have a few more, so we would have to scroll quite a bit to see whether one of my colleagues is using an agent or has just built an agent. And I would like to have like a button or a sorting, like look for unsigned agents. Does that exist? Well, only this table we just saw. Can I sort it somehow? Like by signed and unsigned? Can we signed it by... Can we sort it by signed and unsigned? I think we cannot. Feature request. Well, it's certainly not that hard to do. Yes, we agree. But I don't think we have it. There is the option that on the file system you can just look at whether there's a signature file to the baked agent in addition to the other, but this is not the solution that you want to have in a web service, really. How about creating a button called unsigned agents? Andy, could you make a note to yourself so you just only signed or all agents? Yeah, it's a dual situation. I mean, right now it shows we have unsigned agents, but what we need to see is whether all agents are signed. It can't be that hard to do. So thumbs up to that feature. I have problems finding out where the signs are and where the unsigned are. I mean, a cycle is 24 hours, and then we see, no, forgot one because one agent wasn't signed. So my question actually is, you said before there is a button called minus ray install. Is there also minus ray configure or ray register? Because we do have problems that sometimes administrators can clone machines, although they're not supposed to, and then the state file is already there. So my workaround would be to delete the state file and then it just registers automatically. Is this what it's supposed to do, or is there a way to re-register? Secret doesn't work or doesn't fit. You mean this state file that is being saved at CMK etc update agent state? Yeah, that's the file the updater accesses. In principle, this is the way to go, to re-register with a new opening of register, and then it will look into the state file. So new register doesn't help if you already have a host secret in there. How about a -f function? Yeah, certainly. But it does access your state file, and if your host secret is in there, then this is valid already. So currently, yeah, delete the file. Yeah, I mean, we could just have a little option in there. The registering of the agent updater, does it have to be done by an administrator account? Yes, it's an administrator thing. I don't like it so much because I would like to have it registered by the host admin, but I don't want to give them a checkmk account. It would have to be one permission that you need and add it to the role of user. Well, usually there should be a permission behind it somewhere. Someone says it works, so this permission does exist. All right. Signing of agents is compulsory, so it can be installed, right? But wouldn't it be useful to have a button bake and sign all agents? Because I do bake them, and sometimes it takes a few seconds. And if in that moment, I mean, I have an hour at an interval, if then suddenly 5 hosts request before I have signed it, then they run into the error because they say there's a baked agent, but it's not signed. Well, you do need the password with which you sign your private key additionally. So the private key doesn't end up on your server instance. So if you have a button, or if you were to have a button like this, you would still have to enter your password. Yeah, that's fine by me. Technically, that is possible. Yeah, of course, I have to also enter my password when I sign it, but I don't have to bake it, wait, then sign it, enter password, click sign, and in the meantime, there's always a handful of hosts that have already requested. I do take the idea. Yeah, but it's a bit more complex because we would have to be like an instantaneous signing if we want this to work. So before the target date is changed, the signature would have to be implemented. So many hands going up. I have a question about agent update in a DMC. If I don't want it, if I want to get an update, how can I access the master if I don't want to? With the proxy? But the proxy is not supposed to have access. The only option I can think of is the checkmk server that is in the DMZ, and it can have access to the master on the outside. If that is not possible, you could go to the DMZ and create your own little agent bakery and distribute from there. I want to bake the agent on my master, but if it's not available through the DMZ or through the proxy, but I mean, I don't want to have a tunnel through the firewall with the proxy, so now with the DMZ I cannot organize agent updates. Or you could if you rebake in the DMZ. So if computers are in the DMZ, then they could also get your updates from there. But if they cannot get outside access, they cannot get outside access. Well, pushing is not an option because the agent bakery is not a pusher of packages, but we do have the dialogue between client and I mean the client also has to authenticate, so this is not working. Does HTTPS have to be open for both directions? No. Only the access from the target system that is being monitored to the server, that's where you need the HTTPS. It's similar to accessing a website. The certificate is written out for the server and I access it through the host. We keep having the problem that after a checkmk update, the agents all update, and then within the next hours we have timeouts from the checkmk agents because they are installing. Is there any workaround for this? There are attempts to solve it. We do know about the problem, and we do plan to keep working in that direction. You're talking about the Windows updater? That's taking long? Yes, sometimes. I mean, you have to download it. It could be quite large sometimes, and if you cannot do it through the LAN, it's a matter of configuration for the agent plugin itself. That maybe the timeout should be adapted, but it's also on the agenda. About time control, can I say I want to have a time when I want to start the updates, or will it keep asking every 6 hours? It's quite simple, yeah. With this one option, the update interval, and the one cached file with the timestamp. I mean, it looks at the file, is the timestamp as old as it should be, and if not, it will be accessed. I think it's a bit uncontrolled. I would like to have certain times, like only at night, so would have to be outside of service hours. I don't know. Colleagues, do we have another option? Apart, like being within the or without of the agent bakery, I don't think there's another option. Well, you can use the master switch to turn it on and off. I think the master switch is just a file in the end. So this file should be able to be turned on and off quite simply. So you can see from the number of questions that this is a very popular feature. But behind the agents, I have a question to the agents per se. It always says no arc in the pages. Is this Intel no arc, or do they also work on System I? We have an inflation of HANA systems right now, and many customers use System I and not Intel anymore. I would too. Well, this is an RPM classification of a processor architecture, and no arch are packages that are independent from the processor. So the no C programs or binaries, and this is true for the agent as well. In almost all cases, unless there are C-based plugins in there. But the it also works on Quell point 4 and Rasp on almost everything, so it should be no problem. Yeah, I have a principle or a basic design question. Why do the local package managers not get used? I mean, why not have a baked agent and distribute it via satellite? Why have your own mechanism? Well, our own mechanism is implemented into the agent bakery quite usefully. We have a central spot for configuration and then also do deployment properly. And we also have the service that allows us to get constant feedback. And I think it implements very well into the CheckMK agent system and cooperates well. Yeah, I mean, there have always been these other distribution methods, but you need your own for each operating system, for Red Hat, for Windows. I mean, this can still be done, but the agent bakery does have a few features that these systems cannot do. One important thing I think is that you can have host-specific settings for your agents. Through CheckMK rules, you have your host text. You can say all computers that have an Oracle tag get this plugin, and in the satellite, of course, you could recreate it somewhere, but in CheckMK, it's already in there. So it's an optional feature, but I mean, people requested this. My question was, I mean, for the version control, there is this hooks that the version can be saved away with a hook. I mean, you could do the same thing with the package manager, right? We are at a situation where we don't want to, or we cannot just say we get one package manager. If we choose satellite, what to do with Solaris with Windows? I mean, there is no tool that covers all the platforms. So either the user does create something like Puppet, or we offer one solution that works for the entire MK system. Well, at this point, we did take it out. We abstracted it out by installing the agent on data once. We still have our different packages in place, and then we have to pick the one that we need, and then afterwards we only have the checkmk server who does or which does the work for us no matter what system we're on. I was always against this from the very start. I thought this is something the customer has to do. They have their distributing system, but then the requests were so many that we thought, okay, let's build something. I have got two questions. The first would be, are there ideas for automated rollout or deployment, like from the server to the client as a next step? You mean initial? You mean we don't have to install it first? No, this is not planned right now. Because then we would have to kind of work our way into the systems, and there are other deployment solutions that can do that are already existing. We do not have an elegant way how to get it onto the host initially because the host may not know about what's coming, so we would have to hack into the host, and this is something we don't really like doing. Second question would be baking agents. Basically, the CheckMK user knows that you configure everything through rules, so I add a host and make the changes, and if I then don't go to bake agents, then the host usually is not in the packages. Then the host sees that this is not my package and then goes onto the wrong package. And then, if I'm unlucky, the agent updater will uh, distribute something, and then it could end up with default agents. So it would be easier for me to have the changes in there without baking the agents. This is very bakery specific. I'm not sure about this, but I would say if you don't rebake the agent, the updater will not take it and deploy it for you. Oh, it does. I take the MSI from the package I want to have, and I deploy it on the server. It connects back, sees this is not for me, because this is not one of the baked agents. So the host package link isn't there, and then I take the other package, and depending on what's in there, yeah, it's all messed up. So if I do 2 commit changes, I would have solved the problem. Then I wouldn't have to bake the agents again, which in this case isn't necessary, I guess. I suppose you're right. If your generic agent does not have a deployment agent mechanism, then this is a problem you're going to run into, because the linking to the host is being renewed whenever you roll out. So we have the problem that we very rarely update our OMDs from the check and case side, but we do update plugins. Then we put in our local tree, but then with the bakery this doesn't work because the local tree is being ignored if a plugin is in the normal share tree. Is this something you can work on? Well, the updater is working completely with the agent bakery, so if we have the custom file deployment and use that, then it should be in there generally. This is not about custom files, but about plugins. If something is in local, it should be preferred over non-local. So it could be a bug. So send us a ticket for money or give us free.